Hey everyone, it's another week of Movie Mainline. I am joined with my buddies Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey, who is called Impetigore. I think Impetigore is a is a modifier or a name of a movie that he may cover. I shudder at the thought. Horrible pun. Horrible pun. Eric
That was
Holmes,
a
do you
brilliant pun.
Eric Holmes,
Brilliant.
do you have Shutter? Our buddy Andrew Martin has been really pimping Shutter out, and as Bruce Purkey has been pimping that
I
out for the last year and a half. Do you
I
have that?
do, but I have not been. I've not been taking as much advantage of it as I probably should have been or should
Mm.
be. It's weird because you ever get the you get the different streaming services, except for like one or two, but the movies that you want to watch are on the one or two that you don't have. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I got Shutter, I got Netflix, I got the YouTube, I got everything. It's all set.
Yeah.
But this one's on HBO Max. Son of a bitch. All right.
Would you recommend Shutter though? If you had more time to take
Oh yeah,
advantage.
yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a lot of fun stuff on there.
I would say in Purkegore, do you just live on Shutter? You watch a lot of.
No. But they seem to update almost more than anyone else. I mean, they'll update 2 or 3, 4 movies every few days. So they usually suck me with at least 1 or 2 a week. So there you go.
So our job here at Movie Mainline is for each week to give you listeners about 10 to 12 good movie picks, hopefully, and you can get back to us, tell us if we were right or wrong. Luis Lacau, he has a little bit of a stomach flu today. I had that flu, that same kind of flu, food poisoning a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully Luis and will join us back next week. He is the podcast host of Man Bites Film, and he's part of our Movie Mainline crew. The first segment that we have every episode is a rewind where we actually start watching some of each other's movies. Last week, Eric Holmes was kind enough to say amazing words about the Robert Benton film Bad Company. And he did a little bit of singing of that great, who sang? Yeah, now he's doing this. Is that a
Bad company to the day I die.
is that a bass?
All you got to do
or a
is say
rhythm?
it and he'll go
I
right
don't-
into it.
You know what? I've never played guitar. Was that a bass or rhythm? What kind of guitar were you strumming right there,
It was
Eric
it
Holmes?
was the regular guitar bass. I don't know.
Wow.
He
It's
plays
the
the
air
bass
It's the air
guitar.
guitar.
Yeah.
There were, I do know how to play guitar and bass, and I play neither of them like that.
So our rewind segment is when we watch each other's movies. Again, Eric Holmes saw that director Robert Benton's film Bad Company, starring Jeff Bridges and the late Barry Brown. He was very good in that movie. Any other rewinds for this week that you guys have seen? In Purkegore, Bruce Purkey, have you done any rewinds this week?
Well, I have the one I asked you about. If you consider that a rewind, I could talk about it here. Or is
Yeah,
that
we can talk about that here.
All right.
Eric Holmes, do you have a rewind as well before we get to Bruce?
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Well,
I've seen. Well,
I'm-
we'll see what Bruce talks about, but
I think
I've
we
seen
both.
part of. I've seen part of what Bruce is his talk is probably going to talk about, and
Okay.
I've seen another one that I think might be a rewind, or maybe you just like briefly mentioned it. But
well, I'm gonna raise.
I'll let Bruce go first because
I'm
that's
gonna-
probably the one I'm going to jump on a little bit.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna raise your two kind ofs, and me being very selfish, I have 0. So hopefully I can jump on some of your rewinds, and eventually next week I'm gonna definitely do a rewind. In Purkegore, Bruce Purkey, Rusto Meyer, what do you have for us this week for your
All
kind
right.
of rewind?
So I think this was mentioned on Find Your Film, which everyone should also listen to, otherwise known as what?
Celluloid
trash
Fire. Yes. Find Your Film is a sister brother show of Movie Mainline where each week we spotlight a filmmaker. Right now we're in the middle of our William Friedkin appreciation podcast, our first episode. Due to my horrible organization skills, we spotlighted Killer Joe. We were supposed to actually spotlight the documentary The People versus Paul Crump. For episode 2, which we're taping this week, we are spotlighting The People versus Paul Crump, which is William Friedkin's first film. It's a documentary. Then his actual first feature film, Good Times, which I haven't seen yet, but Bruce Purkey and Eric Holmes have already seen it. But our big meat of that second episode will be a spotlight on I think William Friedkin's most underrated film. A lot of cinephiles like us know the brilliance of it, but we're gonna do the proverbial deep dive, as deep as we can get, with Sorcerer. So I'm excited about that, and we have Eric Holmes to thank for your
Hmm.
William Friedkin retro. Eric Holmes, after these first two episodes, do you think we're gonna come back to do some more Friedkin episodes
Oh
for
yeah,
Find Your Film?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely, definitely. There's no reason not to, because like, what are we doing next? I'm like, all of them.
What would
They
be your
just
next
they move.
for episode 98 when we come back to William Friedkin? What would be the two Friedkins are you going to cover? Which ones, Eric?
I'd
Right off
actually
the
like to
top.
get in. I'd like to get into Jade and Blue Chips, and
Okay.
actually,
Wow.
since I mean, just because we're doing the just because we're throwing the documentary in there,
Hmm.
might as well throw in a TV movie and do his remake of 12 Angry Men.
I love
That
that.
might not be it. That might be, or maybe if we ever do a Sidney Lumet, maybe we'll just slip that in there as we're talking about. Yeah, you
Got
never know.
we've
There's
got to
a
talk
dude.
about Tony Danza. Tony Danza is
He's
amazing
got
in
yeah.
yeah.
Tony Danza is amazing.
He's for so okay, one more thing, Bruce.
He's the boss.
He who's the boss? He is, of course. Bruce Purkey, for your little extended plug. What Friedkin picks would you want down the road when we do episode 98 on Friedkin? What would be your two picks?
I actually, well, Bug, because I haven't seen it yet and I've heard a lot about it. So Bug for sure. And I think I would also pick Jade because I saw Jade in the theater when it came out and I don't remember much of it, but I remember liking it. I remember it getting panned. So I kind of want to see it again.
Okay.
So,
I'm glad I have Eric Holmes and Bruce Purkey as my compadres for these podcasts because if it wasn't for them, all I'd be talking about is The Hunted. It's probably just going to be me on a mic talking about the brilliance of The Hunted. But until then, Bruce Purkey, what do you have for our rewind? What did you rewind for us to talk about right now?
so at the end of that first episode of Find Your Film, which we just discussed, you brought up a brand new film by first time writer director feature, Romola Garai, who's a well known actor. The movie is Amulet. So, and you had mentioned you quite liked it, and you're a little concerned what we would think about it. Hoped we would like it.
You know,
And
I really fell for this movie hard,
mhm.
okay? And it's not because I've seen Romola Garai in previous movies or that she was nice to me during an interview. I'm sure a lot of people would probably think, "Oh, with all these interviews, I can be a little bit biased." It's human nature to be biased about a person's film. Maybe stick up for it if they're kind of nice to you, but this one I thought it was just so surreal and
Mhm.
actually amazing. It's right now it has a very low rating on IMDb. I think it's 4.4 or 4.5 out of 10. Do you think that's fair, Bruce Purkey?
I do not, and I think that it is getting. I think it's probably deserving. First of all, we'll get into a little bit of what this movie is, but I could see it not being everybody's cup of tea for sure, positively. But I think this should at least get a 6 or 7 on IMDb. With some people loving it, some people liking it, some people not, being kind of iffy on it. But I think it's getting a little bit of the internet troll, um, backlash. The same kind of
The,
thing that Groupers got.
Hmm.
And that's because there are very strong feminist and revisionist versions of kind of the horror tropes in this movie. And for a certain type of internet person, they are going to mobilize against a movie like this. So,
Yes, yes, and it's so tragic because that those kind of trolls can't you just enjoy a movie for a movie's sake? Eric Holmes, did you see Amulet? Did you were you able in your crowded schedule to
I
fit
I
that in?
got through. I got through like half of it. So, but
Oh, okay. I don't
so
want to
we will
spoil
yeah.
not spoil it because it goes some places that you may not be
Uh,
expecting yet.
I was gonna say much like when I was watching Bad Company, because I watched the well, we'll get there. Um, I watched another movie and then I started watching that and I just didn't get finished before we were recording. But I mean, so far, I mean, it's up there with Relic for me.
Yeah.
Very
It's got that
cool.
kind of weirdness that Relic.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many similarities between the two so far.
I
And
would say this.
unless it completely shits the bed, you said like four something on IMDb. That's
Yeah.
like I don't.
The
How
ending,
bad did this movie get?
the ending definitely is a little more bonkers. We're not going to obviously spoil it, Greg. The ending is definitely more bonkers than Relic, and it works differently. I don't think this hits me emotionally quite the same way as Relic, but artistically, I think it's right on par. I think I would rate them basically about the same. So we should say really quickly what the movie is. So starts out, you have this soldier in a very wooded, kind of a rural road checkpoint, right? He's just all alone at this checkpoint, and they don't say what the conflict is, but something Eastern Bloc or Czechoslovakia or Serbia, someplace like that, I think. So anyway, you just see him out there, and he's doing his thing and kind of waiting around. And at some point, a woman is running towards him. And as she runs towards him, he's trying to tell her to stop. He doesn't shoot her. They kind of meet up, and then that part of the story kind of ends. And then you see him sometime later. What would you say? A year, 2 years? We don't really know, right, Greg?
Could be 10 minutes for all I know.
Yeah.
You talk about when he's digging up the thing?
Well, that happens too in the beginning. He digs up this little amulet, which they call it an amulet. I call it like a figurine, whatever you want to call it. It's something like a little mini Earth Mother Goddess kind of a deal, sort of a deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, the main story switches gears, and you see this guy a year later or 2 years later, some time later. He's got a beard. He's practically living in a homeless lifestyle in England. He's kind of looks like he does kind of day-to-day labor kind of work, and he lives kind of in this group shelter kind of place. But one thing that's very interesting is right off the bat, you notice that when he goes to sleep, he tapes his hands shut. He has his hands taped shut, like with gaffer's tape or whatever. And then every morning he cuts them back apart, and he goes and he does his thing. So right there, something's up. And anyway, it goes on, and he ends up going to work kind of as a handyman. He's kind of taken under the wing of Imelda Staunton, who's awesome. Gotta love her.
She's a nun who helps him get the job at the caretaker's house, and he ends up taking care of the young woman who lives in the house. The young woman, she has a dying mother upstairs in the attic, and you hear a lot of ailing, wailing, deathly sounds coming from the attic. The young woman, she's played by Carla Juri, Juri. Carla Juri, she was I don't know her character in Blade Runner 2049, but she had that pivotal role with Harrison Ford. She's the one behind, I guess, that window or that enclosure. She's the one, the memory person. Let's just call it the memory person in Blade Runner 2049 without giving too much away on the spoilers and on that section. But she's very good in this movie, and I am beside myself regarding why it is so low rated, because like Bruce was saying, Eric, it goes bonkers at the end. But right now, where you are at in the movie, you're probably disoriented because it with the flash forward and the rewinds and everything like that, you don't understand the nonlinear conception of it all. It just keeps you, I would say at least a third of the movie, you're just saying, what the F is going on here?
At least, if not more. I mean, you have a basic mystery, right? It's kind of, at this point, it's almost a tropey mystery, right? The locked door, the person that you can't see, there's, what are they, a monster, so you don't know. So I guess that aspect is kind of traditional, but, and Greg, you already believe this, but Eric, you can talk to this. Did you kind of get this feeling from what you've seen so far? It has this very kind of weird, it's almost like a dreamy sort of quality to it, and the sounds kind of, to me, I really talked about the sounds, and Greg kind of came back to me on that and said he thought that was good too. Choral stuff and vocal stuff and just
I just not so much the sound. Well, I guess kind of the sound design, because the first part of the movie is basically a silent movie. So the music stood out a lot to me. But I didn't really notice it as anything I should be paying attention to, but maybe I will now.
Did you get to the scene, and this is once again not going to spoil it, other than people will be like, oh, I better take note at this point. Did you get to the scene yet where he's trying to clean out the toilet?
Yeah.
He would know if he got there.
So there's I remember someone pointing at something. Cause it's weird because like with the Relic, there's like a bunch of black mold, and with this, there's like
Sure.
almost like a waterlogged.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the house is waterlogged.
Yes.
And
You would
there
know
was
if you
like
got there. You haven't got
there
there
was
yet.
like there was the bat thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yes.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
sorry.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
no, don't be
then-
sorry.
That's
Don't be
okay.
sorry.
That's okay. It still doesn't tell people anything really.
I was confusing that with Relic somehow, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I got to that thing.
It's
And I was
so
like,
funny.
what the heck?
When I'm
That
trying
moment.
when I'm trying to actually write, when I was cutting my piece with my interview with Romola Garai, I would unfortunately, I would accidentally put Relic instead of Amulet because those movies are just so interchangeable. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I change it on the edits. But to Eric, your point, those movies, though very different, they're going for the same kind of disorienting tone, and they're
Mhm.
both very ambitious. On one hand, Relic is the one that's getting so much praise, and I'm beside myself regarding Amulets. The lack of maybe because of the trolling, the reason why it's not getting so much love, because
Right.
that it really won me over with the third act.
Yeah.
And the feminist overtones
Mhm.
that Bruce was talking about, I don't know if you would agree, Bruce. I mean, I don't really see it as a total overtone. A lot, it's subtly interwoven, and it's really, I think it's done in a very cheeky and cool manner. I was
Yes.
fine with it. I
Oh,
was fine.
I totally embraced it. I
Yeah.
just think it's a different way of looking. And once again, without spoiling anything, it's a way of looking at good and evil and forgiveness and retribution. And I'll leave it at that. But I think it has a very interesting take. And once Eric sees it, if he wants to, maybe we should hop on and do a quick little spoiler session on it.
That would be
I'm down
very,
with that.
very cool. I think Eric, you're gonna really you're gonna really love the end, and especially when we get to a certain part, I think
Yep.
you're just gonna really hop on board as
Yeah.
soon. Yeah, you're gonna really.
I mean, I was gonna say you two finish it, so I mean, you might be able to speak to this more than I would, but so far, I would say that if you liked Relic, you'll probably like this, and if you
Yeah.
like this, you probably like the two movies go hand in hand. I'm almost even if you've seen neither of them, just do a double feature.
Yeah, I think Bruce is right on the money when he said that Relic is the more emotional, resonant film. Because
Right.
Eric, I was listening to some of the spoiler stuff. You went really crazy over the ending. I did too.
Yeah.
Amazing ending. It's an ending that just really brought me got me a little bit teary. I think about my own family, right?
Yeah.
Amulet doesn't go there. It's not supposed
No.
to go there. It's not
Nope.
nope, it's not supposed to. It goes the visceral genre, love for the horror thriller genre without all that really emotion to it, which I thought was fine too. So either way, they're both hand in hand, but you get different kicks from each one, and they're
Yes.
both so well done, man.
I agree. I'm on board for both of them. I like them both quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're done with our rewind. We're gonna go to our weekly recommendations. Hopefully, I can sort of like a vulture off some of your picks, and maybe I've seen some of those picks as well. Eric Holmes, we were talking ad nauseum about Amulet and Relic. Do you have something? What else what do you got for us for your first pick of the week?
Well, we're going to be doing Friedkin. We're going to be recording that later on.
Yes. Yes.
And we talked about Sorcerer. There's a movie from 1953, directed by Henri Georges Clouzot, called The Wages of Fear.
Yes.
The Wages of Fear. Never heard of it. Is that a good
Neither
movie?
have I, because I don't watch movies. But I heard it was good. In a decrepit South American village, 4 men are hired to transport an urgent nitroglycerin shipment without the equipment that would make it safe. Wages of Fear. This is a really, really tense film. A bit okay. I guess it starts off as what would you call that place? Like a kind of a bar, but not really. It's like a
like a right, like a bar, but it's not really. What do they call that? A bodega, sort of like that. Bodega,
maybe,
Sort of
yeah,
a
something like
bodega
that.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, like, well, so Sorcerer is a is a remake of Wages of Fear, and I against Greg's recommendation, I watched them both back to back for the first time.
Bruce, I was telling Eric Holmes,
both
do
those
not
movies are
watch.
merged as one in my head.
Listeners, if you are listening to this podcast, hopefully you are, The Wages of Fear, Sorcerer, both classics, Sorcerer, Freak, and we're going to get to it on Find Your Film. Again, that's a remake of The Wages of Fear. Do not watch it from 0 to the final minute of Sorcerer, which is what Eric Holmes, you did that, and your mind was blown twice, right?
Yeah.
And it's all like interwoven and like
they're all interwoven. It's like okay, a guy gets shot and then they're in like a Spain or something, and but then they're in the jungle, and it's like both movies are just kind of the same. But anyway, so they're a bunch of scamps, as you will, trying to get one over at this guy at this bodega, if that's what it's called.
If that's the term. Sounds nice.
And yeah, I think scamp's fair because they're always trying to. No one really has money for some reason, but they're always trying to screw the guy over. And the guy's like, it's cool. There's the lady, the flirty lady that's always cleaning the floor.
Okay.
Played by Vera Clouseau, the wife of Henri Georges Clouseau. And yeah, she's fun, and they're just kind of screwing around for a bit, and then someone's got they decide they need to move this nitroglycerin. There's a fire at an oil derrick. I think that was that this one.
They're both.
I think that was both. Okay.
Both. Well, you would know because you've seen. I haven't seen The Wages of Fear for about 20 years.
Okay.
I'm in the same boat. Boat. So it's hazy. I remember a couple key like moments in it, and I remember the basic plot, but I don't remember that kind of stuff.
Well, the thing is, I don't know if I'm thinking of Wages of Fear or Sorcerer, and that's the problem I'm having with this. But either way, so an oil derrick blows up, and they got to blow up the dirt around it to extinguish all the fires.
Well, the one where Eric, sorry to interrupt, the one where Roy Scheider almost gets eaten by a shark, that's Sorcerer.
Okay. Gotcha. All right,
but he has that dynamite, so he's good. He gets the shark.
Although
he kills it.
Very good.
At the end of this one, I think it says Finn, so maybe I am thinking of the Roy Scheider one.
It was foreshadowing. The Finn.
But you know what though? From your memory, you watched The Wages of Fear, okay? So I remember being so blown away. One of the shots I remember from The Wages of Fear was when I saw the plane coming into the town, and I remember it was widescreen on my television, and I thought, wow, this is a movie in the early 50s, like you said, 1953, and it looks gorgeous. And I remember after really marveling at that shot, I was absolutely immersed within the rest of the movie. And I think you feel the same way, Bruce, when you saw it 20 years ago. And
I loved it.
Yeah. So we both loved it. So you've seen it recently. Do you know why? Do you have a feeling of why that movie was loved by both of us, but millions of other people?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's because of the beginning, because the beginning is just kind of meandering, like a lot. Yeah. But I guess you want to get to know the characters, and the reason you want to know the characters, and it's like what we're talking about with Brute Force and Rafifi. They're doing all the work. They're front loading the work.
Sure.
We're going to get to know the characters. We're going to understand what it is they're doing, which is transporting nitroglycerin. We're understanding how dangerous that is and why it's dangerous. And we're understanding the rule. They spend the whole first 20, 30 minutes explaining the rules and the players in this game. So then when we get to the second half of the movie, which is them transporting the nitroglycerin, every time they hit a bump, we know how dangerous that is. Every time there's a little branch in the road and they got to stop, we know how dangerous it is. Every time someone runs up at the car, although I think that's actually in Sorcerer, we know how dangerous it is.
We can, in all fairness, we can lump those two movies as one, because whatever goodwill you have for The Wages of Fear, you're gonna have that for Sorcerer. I haven't met many people who've said, "Oh, The Wages of Fear is brilliant," but Sorcerer, he was just copying. I've never heard that before.
I think the main differences between the two are the characters. Because the character is kind of like in Wages of Fear, the main character and the guy in his truck,
Yeah.
um, they kind of have more of a buddy relationship than I think they do in Sorcerer. Like Sorcerer,
Right.
everyone's kind of their own person.
Yeah.
And of course they end completely different. And well, we'll save that one for the Sorcerer one with the ending because don't want to spoil either one of them here.
Yeah.
But Wages of Fear is definitely like a white knuckle, and that's
it.
Probably another reason why you said don't do them back to back. I was just on fucking edge the whole time, just like, oh shit. And I put in Sorcerer, and the same thing. I was like, why am I doing this to myself?
Well, I think one of the reasons, just again off of memory, not talking about the Friedkin film at all, but just about the Wages of Fear, and I don't know if you feel about this way, Bruce. When I first saw it, I hadn't seen many process movies where it's not really a ton of exposition for a big part of the movie, where it's just, we got to get the trucks. We got to get them over. We got to make sure the trucks filled with nitroglycerin doesn't explode. And that's really all your focus. And like Eric, you were saying about every branch, every step, the fact that a big chunk of that movie is just the process of it all. And it's breakneck, it's white knuckle. And I just thought it's one of those rare films where it doesn't need a lot of dialogue at all. It's just all about the process.
The other thing is it's both movies, if I remember correctly, and once again, same as you, Wages of Fear is further in my mind because I just rewatched Sorcerer last night. But if I remember correctly, both of them really have that whole element of kind of man being outmatched by nature and having these really awesome, like, real environments that these are filmed in that just give it a whole level of realism and believability. So you are so on board with this. It's not like a Hitchcock movie where it would all be on a soundstage. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think that to me really added for both of them. You just really feel like you're right in there. And you know that like every turn they make, like a tree could just fall on them, or, you know, a rock might come down the hill and knock them off the cliff, you know? So
they explode a boulder and realize, oh, did we bring the truck back far enough?
Yeah.
Eric, you are more qualified than me and Bruce to say this. After finishing, I guess, your 5-hour marathon, almost, I'm assuming, for Sorcerer and the Wages of Fear, maybe 4.5.
About 4.5, yeah,
4.5. Gut reaction? What was your gut reaction regarding which one was better? Did you finish Sorcerer and say, you know what? I liked it better than Wages of Fear. Did you have any of those kind of reaction, or you said, oh, I thought the wages was better?
No, and I'm trying to think of a good example. It was just a case of they're both the same story, kind of. But like even when they get to like the only similarities Wages of Fear and Sorcerer have are when they're in the truck. But even those parts, like Sorcerer does different things. So it's kind of like
wow.
Well, I guess it'd be like the Night Strangler and the Night Stalker. They're different movies. They're kind of the same, but they're different enough that and they're both great in their own right. And
wow,
if I had to flip a coin, I'd say Sorcerer is better, only because it reminds me of Romancing the Stone because it's in the jungle a lot of the time. But I mean that's just because I like the setting better. But like realistically, I couldn't pick a better movie. They're both fantastic.
Can you imagine? I think that's a good comparison with Romancing the Stone. But guys, can you imagine if we actually recommend it as a double feature? Go see Romancing the Stone first, and when you're done with that fun rom-com out in the jungles, go check out Sorcerer.
Sure.
Yeah,
that would be.
I did that back. You did that backwards.
You did that wrong, person.
Yeah, you're right. No, I did that backwards. You're right. Yeah. Start with Sorcerer first, and then lighten it up with Romancing the Stone. Right
there, you go. That will work.
Okay, so closing out on this recommendation, Eric Holmes. I remember actually transcribing a press junket for this movie. I don't know, either of you have seen it. It's called Season of the Witch. I have not seen it. It was released in 2011. It stars Nicolas Cage. Season of the Witch.
I believe I have seen it. He's like a witch hunter kind of dude, and
Right.
he's I
Yes.
have seen it. It's yeah,
And
Yeah.
you have seen it. Is that all you're gonna say about it?
it's kind of, to me, it's kind of in that same ballpark as like Van Helsing, and
Okay.
it's just
Fair
it's not
enough.
my cup of tea because it's very CGI monstery kind of stuff.
Okay.
But
Eric Holmes, did you ever see Season of the Witch?
Yeah, that's someone was watching it over at my friend JG's house, and I was kind of, and it may have been the Sorcerer's Apprentice, so maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know.
It might have
But
been
if
the
I
Sorcerer's Apprentice. Yeah.
might have
but
been
but
Left
if I
Behind or Next.
oh I no I remember walking out of Left Behind. Holy shit, that's a nice. Anywho, but yeah, the Season of the Witch. I think I seen it, but like as Anderson says, if I did, it went in one eye and out the other because I do
Okay.
not remember.
You
I
know,
do not remember anything about it at all.
I was absolutely going to watch the movie. I believe it's Lionsgate film, and I definitely want to check out that movie one day. But I remember transcribing the press conference, and when Nicolas Cage said, "The reason why I did Season of the Witch was it reminded me it had elements of The Wages of Fear on it." I remember actually typing it up, and I listened. Did Nicolas Cage just compare Season of the Witch to The Wages of Fear? I just stopped dead in my tracks and I said, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to watch this movie. That was just, to me, that was sacrilege. But I
Was
guess
he
that was
did he mean because the whole movie kind of meanders like the first part of Wages of Fear does?
maybe that and the
No.
Sorcerer's Apprentice, man. No, but you know what? I'm older now. I'm gonna forgive it. I'm gonna give. We all love Nicolas Cage, so I'm gonna eventually. I'm looking at this. Yeah, I love Nicolas Cage, and then I just saw Trespass. Not so good. Rest in peace, Joel Schumacher. But no, see it in the Witch. I'm eventually gonna get to that. We're gonna get right now to Bruce Purkey. I want your first pick. What you got?
I have an Indonesian movie which is on Shudder, as previously mentioned,
Thrilled.
um, and it is called. It has a terrible title. I don't even know what the title is supposed to mean. It's called Impetigore. Now, for anyone who's kind of familiar with Indonesian cinema and horror, a couple of years ago, a movie came out called Satan's Slaves, which was kind of a big revelation for a lot of horror fans who had no experience or very little experience, like myself, with Indonesian filmmaking. And Satan's Slaves kind of made a splash, and it was directed by a director named Joko Anwar, and it's a really solid movie, really good, really good. He makes kind of a combination of Indonesian specific folk horror, but also kind of with elements of just crowd pleasing mainstream horror. So it's kind of an interesting combination that he brings to the table. So anyway, this
Is this
newest
stuff
movie,
gory? Is it gore? Sorry, is it gore? Is this stuff gory or not? It's more of about.
it has elements of gore. I mean, I wouldn't say it's an extreme, super disturbing movie, but it's got enough gore in it. If you're a horror fan, you're definitely you're gonna get it. Or if you're not a horror fan, it might be more than you want to see. But it's got a lot of story to it too. It's not like a slasher movie or something like that. But this movie, basically, one thing about this movie, first of all, it's officially 2019, one of those things that never got really released anywhere widely until now. Um, it's got a
Yeah.
great opening pre-title sequence that shows you that this guy, if he were given a budget and a big studio movie, he could do it if he wants to. I kind of hope he doesn't, but he could pull it off because this opening sequence is amazing. Amazing kickoff for a movie like this, and it just starts with two friends, Deanie, played by Marissa Anita, and Maya, played by Tara Basro, and she was also in the other Satan Slave movie. She's kind of the star of this movie as Tara Basro. So Tara Basro's character is in a toll booth. So she sits at night in her toll booth, and cars come through and they pay their toll and they go through. It's like a turnpike or something. I don't know exactly what happens in the cities there, but something like that. And she's on the phone with her friend who's at another toll booth, far enough away that they can't see each other, but they can talk on the phone. And they're just talking about life and stuff. And she's saying how, she's really getting annoyed because this guy is creeping on her. Every night the same guy comes through her toll booth and looks at her too long or asks her questions. And she's like, I don't like it. It's really gross, And then as they're talking, the guy shows up. And she's like, oh my God, he's here. And he goes and he looks at her and she goes, whatever. And they do the transaction and he moves along and then he parks the car, like just a little ways away, but not too far. And he starts getting out of the car. And it's just like such a great tense opening scene for a horror movie. Like it just engages you right away. And then the rest of the story, I won't go into it all, but it's mostly kind of a mystery horror,
Oh,
where
nice.
where her interaction with this creeper guy gives her a clue of what her hometown might have been when she was a really little girl, like 5 years old, three or four actually, young enough that she can't really remember it. Her parents, left her with other relatives in the city, and she doesn't even remember her parents hardly at all. She doesn't remember where she came from. She comes from this little isolated, almost out of history town in the countryside in Indonesia. So she and her friend go because they think like, oh, I might have land there. I might have a home there. I might have, a legacy that I can go and kind of cash in on, right? But she also wants to find out the mystery of her childhood. So her and her friend go to this town. And it's one of those, if you like those kind of movies where, you go into the town and everything's creepy, like everyone's looking at you and there's some kind of a weird, what's going on in this town? Something's unusual.
Like
It's one
Waking
of those
Fright.
kind of movies. Yeah, not quite. It's not quite as good as Wake and Fright. A little
Okay.
more horror version of that, but that kind of similar as far as like that feel, right? When you go into that weird town. And I guess the director based a lot of the stuff in here on his nightmares when he was younger, and he went and he found a real town. The actual buildings and everything are a real town that's out in the country,
Wow.
and the setting looks great. It looks really cool. And when they get there, weird stuff starts happening, like they're staying in this little place, and every day there's a funeral with a small coffin, and just weird things like that, and slowly unfurls the mystery of what's going on, and it's entwined with her childhood. I would say it's 2/3 a fantastic movie and 1/3 a little bit of a stumble at the end. There's a little bit too much flashbacks to expose what's happening and to kind of not just kind of let like how it all is going to wrap up, as opposed to kind of letting it be a little more organic. But if you're into that kind of movie anyway, you're going to still enjoy it, and it has a lot of really good things going for it, and it's got a few twists that are pretty cool. So Impetigore is something that I think a lot of people will check out. Now, it's not going to have the impact of the movies we've been talking about. It's not a relic. This is a little more of a crowd pleaser horror kind of movie. You know what I mean? It's a little more of a straightforward mystery, straightforward horror. It's not like super emotional or super artsy. But it's got its touches that are pretty great. So,
Did you want to go a little bit of that extra mile, because you said this is a mystery, so it is a pleasurable mystery, but did it have the potential to be even an excellent?
Yeah, I think it could have been. I think it just fell short to me in the execution in the final third. And that's kind of a big thing in these kind of movies, right? Like, how does that final third pay off?
That's huge.
And for me, the solving of the mystery was done in a way that it was almost like it tried to give you too much information, and almost like they didn't figure out how they could do it or trust how they could do it. So they did it by flashbacks and kind of telling you know what I mean? And that always kind of doesn't work as much for me. But some of my friends who are into horror, they're loving the heck out of this movie. And so it's definitely a fun movie, I think, I would say. With
this
some
sounds like
scary stuff.
Yeah, sorry. This sounds like a rewind. I think I'm definitely going to check out Impetigore. What about you, Eric? You think are you interested in Impetigore, watching it on Shudder?
I mean, it's got gore in the title, so duh.
I think, let me just say one more thing. What I find really interesting is it's cool when you don't know a thing about a culture to have that infused into the horror, but also it's accessible.
Sure.
It's really fun and interesting, I think, for people, if you're willing to kind of take that extra step, because some people will be like, I just wanted my Friday the 13th. It's like, okay, that's great, but this is not that. And Andrew Martin, huge fan of this too. He just went and praised it the heck out of it on his show. Andrew watches movies, that is.
Oh, another plug. This is what happens, Eric Holmes, and I apologize. We're going to get to you, Eric Holmes, in 1 second. Whenever Bruce Purkey does one of his little subtle plugs for our podcast or our family of fellow podcasters, and most importantly, our fellow
An
friends.
angel gets its wings.
Yeah, angel. Oh. Well, for my case, a little Asian gets his wings. A little Asian gets his a little Asian gets his wings. I'm not so little anymore. I eat too much, so I'm 40, almost 49. But I'm gonna take off. You're gonna hand over the baton, and I'm gonna start plugging, Bruce, because that's all I do is I plug. Listeners, here we are. Movie Mainline. We do. I'd like to think we do an okay job. I one thing I can't do, Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey. I have another podcast I do with Mr. Cowan. I can't sit on a mic. Not sit on a mic. That would be a dating kind of thing. But I can't sit in front of a mic. I can't sit in front of. Sorry, I did that joke just for you, Eric. Just that stupid joke just for you, Eric.
You need to
Holmes.
get the right size mic, Greg. It'll be fine. You just have to.
Thank
You have to start with a small mic and then work your way up.
Yeah, you can't be using those thickies. They hurt too much.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, in my dating life, all I come with is a lavalier. So really horrible tech joke, folks. I apologize for that. Now with Andrew Martin and Andrew watches movies, I honestly, no kidding aside, I find it very hard for just they're another modifier, but talking in front of a mic for about an hour, reviewing movies, that's something that's very hard for me to do. I need that feedback. And the great thing about Andrew watches movies, for listeners, subscribe to him on whatever podcatcher you have, is Andrew, he brings his personal life into the reviews, which I think it could sometimes, if you don't know how to blend it in a very organic way, it could really go south. And it doesn't. He's a friend of ours, but I listen to his podcast on my morning walks because I want to get a personal insight on cinema. I want to get a personal insight on who that podcaster is, Andrew Martin. And I just think I think that's a skill that I don't know if I have yet. And I've interviewed people for 30 years, but I tell us, Andrew, I marvel that he can sit behind a mic, talk about cinema for up to an hour, sometimes even more, and just let his thoughts. I like people when he's formulating his thoughts and feelings about movies. I think that's just very interesting.
For me, it's almost like the movies he's talking about is ancillary. It's almost like he's using them as a excuse to kind of explore himself and the world around him, which is a neat way to go about it. And when he started getting more, like going more in that, because I already loved listening to him to begin with, but when he started going in that direction, I was like, oh, dude, this is good stuff. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Bruce. I mean, don't you think do you think you could? I mean, Bruce, you've been interviewing a lot of people. You had a 2-hour. You recently had a 2-hour conversation with someone with a really acclaimed.
Yeah, and I have about an hour and a half conversation with Andrew and Eric coming out in like a day or so. But then in a week or so, you're going to have about a 2-hour conversation, or I might split it into 1-hour ones. I haven't decided yet. With Mark DeWitziak. DeWitziak, to say it right here.
Did you cover Twilight Zone at all during that convo a little bit?
Oh, yeah. He's got a whole book on Twilight Zone.
We got this guy right here.
Yep.
Yes, I Am Legend screenplay. Oh, edited by Mark DeWitziak. Wow.
It's probably backwards on the thing, but you get the idea.
It was perfect, Eric Holmes. So listeners, you can check out that interview with Mark DeWitziak, right?
Yeah.
In a week or so on Rostomeyer.
Probably by the time this drops, it'll be out within a day or so. Because I'm gonna start editing it later this week, and this will drop a little later than that. So yeah, we had a great conversation, and we went everywhere from like what his original. Well, Eric, you listened to it. Well, what do you want to say about it?
I thought it was the greatest interview I've ever heard.
I'm not going to defend. I'm not going to rebut because I have not gone 2 hours with during an interview.
The only thing you guys did not bring up was Gremlins. If you guys would have brought up that, it was like they talked about everything I wanted to talk about.
We didn't bring up Gremlins, did we?
Other than that, like it was right up my alley. It was as good as I thought it would be because I've seen interviews with them on YouTube. I just love listening to them talk, and then just listening to both of you bounce stuff off each other was pretty great.
We went some weird directions, and we got pretty.
And you guys brought up Wages of Fear.
We did. He brought up Wages of Fear. Yeah. Randomly, Wages of Fear came up.
Wow, that is so amazing! I can't wait to listen to that interview. I think you
good.
Actually sent it to me a couple of days ago. I got to download it, Bruce. So, Eric Holmes, what is your next pick? And does it have anything to do with kicks, martial arts, or maybe not?
Well, it has to do with the. Basically the second greatest interview I've ever heard.
I'll take that. I'll take number 2. It's fine.
And I'm not lying. I don't have a legacy of these lies. It's a new Scott Adkins movie, Legacy of Lies. I do not have the information up in front of me other
Well, let
than
me.
Scott
Okay,
Adkins's. Okay, yeah, you go ahead.
I'm gonna. You know what? Here's the thing. A couple of episodes ago, which is might be a month and a half ago, I remember Eric Holmes. You went. I've got to find that sound. You went on an epic monologue about your love for Scott Adkins, and when you did that monologue, I got to find it. It's amazing. You really appreciate Adkins's work. I had only seen at the time Avengement, and I thought Avengement. Bruce Purkey, you've seen Avengement as well.
Yeah.
I would say would co-sign that it's a pretty solid crime drama, really good
Oh,
acting
yeah.
from Atkins, excellent action, and so I was on board after Avengement, and then we saw Debt Collectors. Okay, since then, and we both enjoyed it. That's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Now with Legacy of Lies, it's out this week on DVD, digital, on demand. Scott Adkins, he plays an ex-MI6 agent. He is haunted by his past. Something really went wrong back in the day, and now we see him living pretty much from city to city with his daughter, okay? And they can't stay at one place for a long time because he feels like his past might catch up with him. And with Legacy of Lies, which Eric Holmes was mentioning, it happens. Russian operatives and UK operatives corner this ex MI6 agent pretty much in a corner, and he has to actually hand over some secret documents that is owned by a journalist, this young 20-something journalist, and his main dilemma is whether to hand over the documents or the secret file to the British folks, or to the Russians, or keep it himself and protect the journalist. Meanwhile, he has a daughter to protect. So there's a lot of, it's an interesting, the Legacy of Lies, that's an interesting enough moniker, but I thought this movie was really interesting, that the fact that there's just a lot of drama behind all of the action. Eric Holmes, your thoughts when you saw, you're more of an expert on Atkinson's body of work, and just wondering what your overall thoughts on Legacy of Lies.
Well, first of all, I want to try out for the DVD trailer voiceover. Legacy of Lies, an I already failed. Take two. Legacy of Lies, an ex-M16 agent is thrown back into the world of espionage and high stakes to uncover the shocking truth about operations conducted unknown secret services.
Very good.
That didn't even make sense. This movie is I kept thinking of Metal Gear Solid when watching this.
Okay.
It had kind of that, it's got that almost ridiculous level of intrigue to it, to where it's kind of hard to follow sometimes, but you get the basic gist of it. If this would have got like weird at the end, like Metal Gear Solid does, this basically would have been a Metal Gear Solid movie. And it's pretty damn good. One of the things I like about it, because he basically doesn't want to be involved in the M16 thing. MI6. Is that the James Bond thing or whatever?
Yeah, I think that's MI6, right? I don't know if Bond was part of the. I'm not good at my British lore when it comes to agencies.
Anywho.
Yeah, MI6.
So maybe it's like James Bond Solid, maybe, I don't know, but either way, it's just the MI6 people are kind of can't be trusted. The woman he's trying to get the information from, she can't be trusted. The people that have his daughter definitely can't be trusted, but he's just trying to get his daughter alive. He kind of grows to know the girl that has like the codes, and comes to find out that she can't, I can't hurt her. The people following her, he's friends with them, and he knows that they're not being malicious. They're just doing their job. So he's definitely like put in this situation where it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I guess I'll just keep moving and do kind of vaguely do stuff so they don't think that I'm screwing them over. And then they get into fights, and those are cool.
The fights are awesome. There's this one elongated sequence where he's fighting one of the MI6 agents. I forgot his name. His first name is Leon something, but it seems to last forever. And I think it's done in a sort of a warehouse. It's just, out of all of the stuff that happens in Legacy of Lies, that fight between him and that other guy, the Asian guy, was a standout for me. Did you like the action sequences here? Eric Holmes,
Leon Sua.
Leon Sua.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, all the action scenes and more than that, I don't know if this would be spoiler. I don't think it is, because the was it the Russian lady that was taking care of his daughter?
Daughter, right,
You know,
holding her for hostage, or
well, yeah,
but kind of taking
I
care of her. Yeah.
taking care of air quotes. But then they did this thing because she was this like this hard ass like emotionless kind of villain, and as she's taking care of the daughter, like you get the sense that, oh, something happened to her daughter, and now she's like,
Right.
she's not, all of a sudden she's just not a two-dimensional villain anymore. Now she's got some depth to her, and now there's, oh, is she gonna just let her go, or is she gonna, is she gonna stay the villain route? And it like, so is conflicted as everything gets for Scott Adkins' character. Things get conflicted for her, as does the MI6 people, because he's Scott Adkins' friend. Like, he's not a bad guy, and so there's no like clear villains or heroes. It's just everyone's kind of doing their thing, but you kind of understand everyone's point of view, and you see that they're all human, which is really uncommon for movies of this type.
Very
And
much so.
I was quite surprised by it, especially since like Scott Adkins' movies. I shouldn't be surprised at this point, because his movies, like, he's been picking great ones to be in, and he's been doing that forever. Just doing all these straight to video movies, but they're so good. Like that, there's whether they step up on the action, or they step up on the character, or that they're always stepping up some aspect of it, and it never feels like they're just phoning it in. It's just really good.
How long have you been a Scott Adkins fan? I don't know how far his um
I think the first time I noticed them, I think it was Undisputed 2,
okay.
because I remember liking the first movie, and I was kind of on a Michael Jai White kick, and so
Nice.
they did the second one, and I'm like, it's probably stupid, but I'll watch it. And I watch it, and I was like, oh, this is good. And Scott Adkins played Boyka in that, and I just loved his character. And they've since made Undisputed 3 and Ninja and so on and so forth. And I kind of fell off on like for about a year or two, up until recently when we got back into Avengement. But
Wow.
yeah, he's just like he stays in that. It seems like he stays in the direct to video, or this direct to streaming. And normally that's kind of like a dumpster fire, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he just shows that it doesn't need to go. You don't need a big release for it to be great. Like the
Right.
you think, oh, action movie straight to DVD, it's gonna suck. But like, he's doing what Sho Kosugi did back in the day. Like, that
Oh,
stuff
very
would
cool.
would
Yeah.
just kind of. I don't know if it played in theaters, but for me, I only first saw him on video. The Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, Pray for Death, all those, um, and he was doing, Sho Kosugi was doing like really cool action movies, but they weren't like he wasn't on the
Sure.
level of like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Stallone or anything, but they were really freaking good. And Scott Adkins is kind of the same thing. He's like kind of staying in his lane, but man, that lane is fantastic to drive down.
Yeah,
And
no, it's a great lane.
yeah,
Avengement and now Legacy of Lies. I like the fact I've got to watch some of his that Undisputed stuff. I've got to watch more of his movies. And you know this. You've listened to the interview. He said he didn't seem so enthused about doing another Debt Collectors, maybe. But I hope to goodness that they do another Debt
yeah,
Collectors, because those sometimes you just need a fun movie to do, and that's just
yeah.
one of those guilty pleasures, I think.
Yeah, that collector is actually, like, I could see like a TV show out of that. But at the
Yeah,
same time, because it's got that kind of, oh, what's the adventure of the week that these two guys are going to go on,
yeah,
or it definitely lends itself to that. But at the same time, like, Scott Adkins is pretty prolific. Like, he's just churning movies out,
yeah,
and surprisingly, they're all really good. So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
when you can be prolific and maintain quality, that's something to be admired. So I wonder if like as much as I'd love to see another Dead Collectors, I didn't know I wanted to see Legacy of Lies till I saw it. I didn't know I wanted to see Avengement till I saw it. So, you know, it's kind of like a, you know, you want to see like sequels to, or see these characters come back. But anytime, and not just with the Scott Adkins movie, just with any movie, every time someone's bringing a character back, that's one more movie with that person that you're not getting. People can only do so much stuff in it. Robert Altman only made so many movies before he died. Maybe we didn't need Popeye. Like, what kind of original Altman movie would have been in place of Popeye? You know, if Tarantino was talking about doing one more movie and he's done, what if that one more movie is a Star Trek? We just got robbed of a original Tarantino movie.
That's a very good point.
You know, perhaps that's what Scott Adkins feels. It's like, it could be fun to do another Dead Collectors, but maybe I'm not going to get another whatever the next one is that we haven't heard of, that we don't know that we love yet because we haven't seen it. You know?
Yeah. So essentially, he's like what you're saying. He's trying to push boundaries, which I think that's really cool with his body of work. You know, that's a very good. You know, before we end in Scott Adkins, Bruce Purkey had no idea we're actually doing a Scott Adkins podcast, sponsored by Scott Adkins, folks. Bruce Purkey. And
you can find us at Scott Adkins at scottatkins.scottatkins.
Yeah, we're going to be on the horn with him, Bruce. You're going to have to sign up pretty soon. But very quickly before we go, and to add to the joke, but this is not a joke. I just scored Eric Holmes. Unfortunately, this is bad news for both you and me. With a publicist for Legacy of Lies, folks. We're getting 5 DVDs. I'm going to give them away for just our Movie Mainline Find Your Film community. So definitely that's going to be on the docket. I'll be posting it on my website, deepestdream.com.
Awesome.
So that'll hopefully it'll grow our community. I'm getting 5 DVDs of Legacy of Lies. Neither me nor Eric nor Bruce are getting any of these DVDs. I'm going to ship them off to people who listen to
You know, honestly, I wouldn't take it because it's I've seen the movie. And it's you gotta spread that out there, like as much as I would love to take one of the DVDs and hoard it. Again, like I said, that's one movie that Robert Altman didn't make. That's one person that didn't see Legacy of Lies, and I think everyone should see it.
Excellent, Eric Holmes. Very good. I've got to start thinking more about the other person instead of myself in numbers and analytics. I need to learn that, right, Bruce? Bruce,
yes.
What do you have? What do you have?
I have a rewatch, which I actually mentioned I was going to talk about last week, and I'm pretty sure that we've all seen it now. And that is Nicholas Roeg's 1973 movie, Don't Look Now.
Bad company. Oh, sorry.
As I don't even know how much we should go into it. I mean, I guess a lot of people haven't seen Don't Look Now.
Well, first of all, why did you decide after all these years to do a rewatch on Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now? By the way, it stars Julie Christie, Donald Sutherland. And so why did you decide out of all the things you could have seen?
Well, a couple of things. Recently they had their half off Criterion sale. And every time I go to one of those sales, it's like I want everything there. So it kind of forces you to either do two things. Either you decide I'm going to try out some things I've never seen before, I get a Criterion version of them, or I see this thing that I must have. This is something that I've loved in the past and I want this Criterion version of it. So in this case, that's kind of the route I went. And one of the ones I got was Don't Look Now, which I hadn't seen probably now for 25 years, 20 years, something like that. And I've always loved this movie. And I thought, I'm going to get it. And I'm guessing there's probably a ton of people under 30, at least, that have never seen Don't Look Now. And I know, especially with movies like Hereditary, which I think that was one of the main movie influences that Ari Aster commented on for Hereditary, that one and Rosemary's Baby and some other stuff. But I thought, that might be interesting to talk about. Some people might be really interested in kind of checking this movie out. Plus, Nicholas Roeg in his prime was making some really interesting and unusually structured movies. So it's good to kind of bring him back to the forefront whenever you get a chance, I think. So. And
Eric Holmes, you also saw Don't Look Now recently?
Yes.
And
that's I wasn't expecting it to be I was like watching it, it's like, oh, this is kind of like a giallo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was watching it like, no, this is a giallo. And so, Greg, I think you were asking before, like, what the like. Did, did you watch Don't Look Now?
Well, unfortunately, my I only watched probably sections of it, maybe within the last couple hours. So
All
I
right,
didn't do a full rewatch, but
all right.
I've
I
seen enough to actually contribute,
Yeah,
which is interesting. And you know what Bruce was talking about, how it's been about 25 years since he's seen Don't Look Now. I would say probably almost the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Rogue in my 20s, early to mid 20s, was even to late 20s, was a huge influence
Mm-hmm.
in just for me as a cinephile. And the first time I saw Don't Look Now, I was really blown away because I think it was I saw, you know what, whenever Out of Sight was released, that Soderbergh film with Jennifer
Yes.
Lopez and George Clooney, they were talking about that love scene and they were saying it's a complete homage to the love scene in Don't Look Now. And
Right.
I think I mentioned this on Find Your Film or one of or Movie Mainline. After watching Don't Look Now for the first time, yeah, 22 years ago, I I was surprised how the love scene in Don't Look Now was probably the least noticeable thing in the movie for me. It was interesting, was well done, but the
Mm-hmm.
entire movie itself was a complete mind f. So,
Yeah.
and what frustrated me about this was everyone was talking about the love scene between the married couple, Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, how it's really beautifully edited, but they just glossed over the entire movie itself, which it's really a really scary, heartbreaking film, and it
Yes.
continues to be heartbreaking just thinking about it right now.
It
And
isn't as scary for me now as it was when I saw it before. I wonder how it will work on modern audiences, or we'll get Eric's take because when he's seeing it with fresh eyes, I bet it isn't as scary to people now.
interesting,
And even to me, it doesn't come across as scary as it does sad.
very good point.
And it's sad, and it's also I'm trying to how to describe this. There's an element of predestination. There's an element of fate that goes through this movie, which is really interesting. Um, and also just visually and mood wise, it's really unlike about any movie I can think of. It's incredibly strange in the mood and the tone that it takes.
Well, listeners, the real big, quick plot synopsis behind Don't Look Now, the 1973 film. It is based on a short story by writer Daphne du Maurier. Du Maurier
Yep.
is best known for her, I think, novel Rebecca, which eventually was made into that popular Alfred Hitchcock film. But anyways, Don't Look Now centers on this couple. They are living somewhere in the English countryside, and they have a
Mm-hmm.
nice, beautiful home, pond, pond right in their backyard, gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
idyllic life. And at the beginning, you see a cute girl, not 8 or 9 years old. She's wearing a red coat. She's playing around in the pond. Her brother is on a bike. The parents, Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland, they are in the home. They are doing their own respective jobs they're mired in their own thing. What happens is through a series of editing and images and like what Bruce Purkey was saying about predestination and or this precognitive thing, Donald Sutherland's character, he starts looking at a couple of slides of a church that he's trying to restore, and for some reason he's looking at this weird slide that has a person with a red hood inside the church. So while he's looking at the slide, the other person, his daughter, has a red hood and she's outside playing by the water. And for some reason, something happens. He, he I think he, something trips or something gets knocked over and he gets blood onto the slide. The blood goes over the slide. And once he sees the blood go over the slide of that church and that hooded figure in the church, he realizes something might be amiss outside. And
Yep.
then this goes back to the point, Eric Holmes, when I said go check out the opening act of Don't Look Now. He finds out, this is not a spoiler, folks, because it set up the entire thing. He finds his daughter at the bottom of the pond. She has passed, and it flash forwards to them in Venice as Donald Sutherland's character. He's trying to restore a church in Venice, and his wife starts befriending these two women. One of the women, she's blind, she's a psychic. She believes she has actually seen the spirit of their dead daughter, while Julie Christie's character is starts believing in the supernatural thing. And this is where what fascinates me about this movie, really. Donald Sutherland's character, he's so mired into helping working on stained glass freaking windows on the church. He's
Mm-hmm.
not paying attention to his wife or his kid who's in boarding school in England. Wherein the real another tragedy is he is the one who should actually accept the supernatural element these two women are bringing forth to him, because as I was talking about the bloodied slide at the beginning of the first act, this character, he has the ability, whether he wants to know it or not, he has the ability to kind of see in the future in the way a lot of us can see in the future, in my opinion, in within synchronicity. We
Mm-hmm.
each of us, if we are attuned to our dreams and our life, we might be able to see things before they happen. And that, I think, is what makes Don't Look Now a little bit scary, but I think, to Bruce's point, ultimately very, very sad as well.
Yeah.
So Eric, with all that said, Bruce was saying that maybe a new audience may not appreciate it, or may see it a different way. You are an editor yourself. I would love to see what you thought about the editing, the sound design, the mechanics of the movie. Did you find it dated, overpraised, or did you find some really interesting nuances with Don't Look Now?
I certainly didn't find it overpraised because I haven't heard much about it. I just kind of I'd seen the DVD, like, and I keep almost getting it and then never doing it. Um, but a lot of it I was kind of familiar with, in that it's a giallo, and the story is very similar to The House with the Laughing Windows.
Yep.
And just giallos in general. It's like you have a terrible event happen. Life is kind of mundane, and it just kind of slowly gets a little weirder and weirder and weirder until it comes to a head at the end. And that's pretty much the formula for any giallo movie. And I would say that this is a good, if you're not into them or you've never seen one, this would be a good entry. Actually, this would be a great entry point, because it kind of it doesn't get too weird that I think that giallos do, where they kind of might turn some people off. This one gets just weird enough, but not. It doesn't go just completely bonkers nuts like a lot of them do. But yeah, if you want to get your toe wet in that kind of genre, you could find a lot worse places to start than this. This is a good entry point, I think.
Thoughts on the sticking the landing third act, Eric Holmes? Were you surprised? You got it. Were you
Um,
surprised with what happened? All that
there
kind
was
of stuff.
a outburst like I've had. No, I wouldn't say that, because I've seen enough of these movies, and this is an older one, so I kind of had a pretty good idea of where it was going, so I wasn't too surprised there. But it did have it managed to stay real simple, which movies like these don't usually do, because they start getting so convoluted and strange at the end. By the time you get to the end, it's hard to tell what's going on. This one is pretty clear because it didn't lean too heavy in that. It kind of stayed, for lack of a better term, it stayed pretty focused, I think. And but yeah, they I don't know how to say this. A certain person turns around. That was a bit shocking to me. Uh,
Yeah,
so
Bruce, Eric was saying a certain person turns around. It was quite shocking to me. That's not giving too much away, I thought, but that was a very shocking moment. I've seen portions of this movie before we got ready here for Movie Mainline, and one of the things I really love about the movie upon third viewing, I guess the first two times were 20 some odd years ago, is the editing, where you'll have a certain image that Nicholas Rogue and his editor DP they would go back to, and that image will be referred maybe somewhere down the line, or
yeah,
you'll have when, like I said, the Donald Sutherland character, he might be able to see things before they happen. There are moments in this movie that where you say, is this scene going on right now in real time, or is it going on within the imagination of the people who are inhabiting this world in Venice? The movie's predominantly set in Venice. So I just thought it was a really interesting, sort of subtly supernatural type of movie. And yeah,
Maybe,
it's emotional. You can
maybe.
take it. Eric, sorry.
Well, you said supernatural. I said maybe, because a lot of this movies of this type, it's there a lot of times are a descent into madness. So a common theme is there supernatural, or are they just going nuts? And so you can't. It's hard to tell which one it is.
And I think the key also too is just like the editing style you're talking about, Greg, and talking about madness and talking about supernatural, all these things. And to Eric's point of Giallo, is there's the editing style kind of does that to you, right? Like this kind of disjointed repetition of motif, like visual motifs, out of place and time. So you're constantly disoriented by them, but you're also it also is kind of building a cumulative effect that as each time you see these images or similar types of images, they kind of start to get a meaning. They start to add meaning to them as you go and start to unravel the mystery. And Giallo does that kind of stuff too. Argento, and a lot of them do it, but a lot of them will do it. They'll show you a bunch of things early on in the movie, and you'll understand what those things are, but you don't understand why you're being shown them so specifically. And
it kind of works like a running gag.
Yeah,
like, bad company. It's not funny the first time. It's kind of funny the second time, but the third time you do it, it's hilarious.
But you know what I mean, Eric? Like you'll see like a real common one is like I've seen this in a couple of giallos where you'll have like a lot of times it's a murder usually in giallo movies, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll have a murder in the beginning, and throughout and during the murder you're going to see a bunch of details. You might see like the actual murder happening, and then you might see a close-up of a flower, and then a close-up of a painting, and then something falling on the ground, and then you know what I mean. And you can kind of see what I'm going with this as far as Don't Look Now. It has similar sorts of things, and as the movie goes on, all those little details will add up to tell you, usually in a giallo, to tell you like who the killer is, right?
Wow.
And to tie the whole mystery together. It doesn't always work that way, right? Because they're all riffs on a theme. So some of them will be more supernatural. Some of them will be just straight ahead murder mysteries. And some of them will be a little of both. But that kind of disjointed use of imagery and sound and repetition is really common in a lot of giallo. And I think that's what Eric's kind of getting at. It feels more like an Italian movie than a British movie.
It seems like I would love giallo movies. It seems that I'd be ripe for the picking for those for that genre.
Yeah, Eric, it's a director. It's a British director.
I did not know it was a British movie. So,
I mean, it takes place in Italy, which obviously makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's how steeped into that genre it is.
Yeah.
It was like I had no. I guess I probably should have figured it out, but yeah, I had no idea until you just told me just now.
Well, Eric Holmes,
I'm dumb.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead. I was gonna say the last thing is it's such a trope that the setting is a character in the movie, but goddamn, if Venice is not a setting, is not a character in this movie. I mean,
it definitely has a maze quality too, just because of the narrow, and the constantly blocked off by water and stuff like that, and I mean, just right there, the water definitely plays like you were saying, it's that. She drowns, and so water is a constant theme throughout.
This is one of those movies where actually I have the criterion like you do, Bruce. I was thinking this is one of those movies where you can actually put on as background, and you can just look at it as a painting or as an evolving painting, just because of the editing, how beautiful it looks. Obviously, the stuff that goes on is absolutely freaking tragic, but the images stay with you. A couple of more things before we get to your pick, Eric Holmes. A couple of little facts about Don't Look Now. The composer of Don't Look Now his name is Pino Donaggio. Pino Donaggio is best known as the composer for, as we all know, of a lot of Brian De Palma films. Brian De Palma being the best director ever existed in humankind. ad infinitum or ad whatever, ad forever. He's the
In,
man. You know,
infinitum.
yes. Yeah, so that's one. And then Donald Sutherland, one of his kids is named Rogue Sutherland, Roeg. That really typifies how important his experience on Don't Look Now was. He had a very close relationship with Nicholas Rogue. He named his son after Rogue. And I was trying to think of one more. Oh yeah, during the Memento press junket, my first question, Bruce, you'd really appreciate this, was I asked him, Mr. Nolan, growing up, were you a huge fan of Nicholas Rogue and films like that? And he just, I'm not going to say he lit up because we've all seen interviews with Nolan. He's very even keeled, but he was basically talking about how Nicholas Rogue was a huge influence on him as a filmmaker. So, listeners, if you really love Memento and Nolan's films, I would suggest try giving Nicholas Rogue's movies, like Bruce Purkey was saying, especially during the sweet spot of his
Yeah.
career, which a lot of people say is Performance or
Hmm.
Walkabout, and now Don't Look Now. And you can also say, if you want, several years later, The Man Who Fell to Earth. So down the road, we might be doing some Nicholas Rogue stuff. We might be doing some Giallo stuff. You know what we should do? We should do a Giallo special for Find Your Film, and then just tag on Nicholas Rogue as a de facto member of the Giallo movement, the genre. So Eric Holmes, what is your pick? What's your next pick? We're gonna do one more round. So do you have one more pick for us?
Yeah, I got two. One of these I may have done already, so I'll just throw it by you. And if
Okay.
I've already done it, I will skip to the other one, if that
Okay, you
makes
got it.
sense.
You got it.
Because I love this movie and no one talks about it, and I haven't crossed it off my list yet, so maybe I have not talked about it. They talk about the movie Lose.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Well, perfect.
LOSE? Like just
Luz, Luz.
No,
Oh,
no, Lose. You have mentioned it in passing, but you haven't actually talked about it. And I've watched this movie. I think I'm the only other person that's watched it because you said how much about it. And when it came out, I watched the damn thing. And I
yeah.
watched Iceman. Thank you very much.
I keep putting this off to the side, but we're talking about Giallo, and this is a perfect time to bring this up because this one kind of
Sure.
is too. I When I first saw it, I kind of how did I put it? It's as if Stanley Kubrick and Fabio Frizzi were collaborating on a movie and came up with this because it's got elements of both directors. Um, and it's how do you even explain the plot to this one?
It's kind of impossible.
Yeah, it's well, I'll just read the thing here. I've been doing it all day. Wife, stop now. Um, Luz, a young cab driver, drags herself into the brightly lit entrance of a rundown police station. A demonic entity follows her, determined to be close to the woman it loves. Which I guess sounds about right.
That sounds like an amazing plot, by the way. That just sounds awesome. The
It's
poster looks awesome too. And
Mhm.
the if you watch the trailer is really confusing. It looks interesting, it's confusing, and then you watch the movie, and it's like, oh, okay. I had this when I watched Inland Empire.
Mhm.
Actually, every time I watch Inland Empire, um,
whoa,
and
whoa, whoa. Every time you watch Inland Empire, meaning you have seen Inland Empire more than once, Eric
yeah,
Holmes.
yeah.
Can we
Um,
even just skip Lose and talk about why you've seen Inland Empire more than once? You're bearing
um,
the lead here, Eric Holmes.
well, there's that, and even Southland Tales, and Southland Tales probably even more so. But like, this is one of those movies I don't. I'm almost there. Like, I watched the movie, and then I'm following the movie. I'm like, okay, I'm with you. And then there's a moment where I'm like, I got it. And then the movie ends, and it just goes away, and I don't have it anymore. Like, and so every
Yeah.
time, I watch Inland Empire, I'm like, oh, okay, it's all starting to come together. It's all making sense. I'm figuring the world out, and the credits are going. What's happening? I can't remember anything. Same deal with Southland Tales, and it's probably why I like this one so much because it's such an oddity and mystery to
It
me.
really is.
It's I don't want to say it's unlike anything I've seen, because I've seen movies that like this, because I just mentioned Fabio and Fritzi and Kubrick,
Yeah.
button heads. But it's more than that. It feels yeah, Hold the Dark kind of had this too, where it's like it doesn't quite make sense, but it does. Like when I'm watching it, I'm in it. I'm in it and I get it. And then as soon as the credits go, like just everything's gone. And I can't bring myself to explain why I love it so much, but that's why I love it. It's like a puzzle I keep trying to figure it out.
You know what's interesting that you said that say that, Eric, is that's I think a lot of people, once you say that, when everything goes, I think there are some people who would say, I really hate that. I really
Yeah.
hate when the story gets let go and I don't know where I am. So, or I
Yeah.
feel I lose it. But I think to your point, I think that's really cool. I was joking about Inland Empire because I think that that's great that you've seen it more than once. I've only seen it once and I remember really enjoying that film, even though I didn't understand what it was about. I
Yeah.
love, and by the way, he did the press junket. David Lynch did the press junket at a pie shop called Marie Callender's right across the street from our work. So when we interviewed him, we just had pie and we talked about Inland Empire with him and Laura Dern. That was a great day. But Bruce, what did you think
Real,
of? Oh,
real quick, perfect example of what I'm talking about. The movie Marty, Flowers
okay,
for Algernon. He has he's mentally handicapped, or whatever the proper term is for that.
right.
And he starts his mind starts, he takes the drugs and he gets smarter, and he knows all this stuff, and all of a sudden it starts wearing off, and he starts going back to where he was. Now he remembers knowing all that stuff, but he can't pull it anymore. That's like
Yeah.
watching this movie. As I go, I'm getting it. Oh, nope, nope, it's slipping away. I remember that I got it, but I don't got it anymore. And so it's not like the movie's such a mess that I forgot everything as soon as I seen it. It pulls
That's
me
really
in,
cool.
and once I'm out, and I can't seem to pull myself. But yeah, that's Flowers for Algernon. It's like Flowers for Algernon.
Bruce, what did you think? Luz, does that have that elusive quality that Eric Holmes was alluding
It
to?
does. One thing that's kind of hard to describe is kind of the scope of it, because whereas you talk about like David Lynch and some of these other movies that we're mentioning, the scope of this movie, like actual setting wise, is very small. And some
Hmm.
of the scenes are almost like play acting. I don't know how to describe it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean. There's some scenes where things are being pantomimed and played out. And okay,
yeah, because
I think I
she's being hypnotized, and so
yes.
she's like,
So she's
if you've
playing
seen
out
a
the
if you've seen a
scene.
hypnotist comedian, you'd see people do that on stage.
Yes, but it's really interesting in how it's staged. But what I wanted to get back, I wanted to say a little bit about what Eric is saying, and I think I kind of have a grasp on why he's having that feeling and why it works that way. And I think Lynch is a great example of this, because the thing with Lynch is his movies are almost always solvable. They almost always have a actual reading that's intended, that makes sense. They're not just random. And even if you don't understand what he's trying to get at exactly, your mind, it's the way that your mind works with a dream, right? Your mind understands that there's something there and is trying to work it out. You're trying to work it out. You're trying to work it out. And like a dream, sometimes you wake up and you had it, and then it kind of fades away and you have to get back to that. And I think that's kind of the way it works. Um, Lose is the same sort of thing. And
Wow.
I think how to describe this. I've described it before like this, where a great abstract artist is the artist who can make non-abstract really well. They can prove that they can make non-abstract really well, so their abstract is earned. Picasso could do representational art, but he didn't
Yeah.
want to do representational art. He did what he did later on, but he could prove that he did that. David Lynch can make a straight story, or Elephant Man, but he makes a Mulholland Drive. So when you see them, your brain just like almost just knows instinctually that there's something here to solve, and your brain wants to solve it if you are susceptible to those kind of puzzle movies. And they are kind of puzzle movies, but they also still work in that dream logic. So they hit you emotionally and they hit you intellectually at the same time, and they force you to like almost obsess over them. And Lose is one of those sorts of strange, it's evil, and it's mysterious, and it's perplexing, and it's maddening, and it's really weird. And I don't know how to describe it. I mean, Eric, what do you say?
That's about it. I would also say it's very seductive.
Mm-hmm.
Because things are going to end a certain way, or
Yep.
will they? I don't know, but it's like, and then what happened?
Well, that's because of the
Shit.
the opening scenes set you up for that, right?
Yeah,
So there's a kind of a framing opening scene that really informs where you go. Like after the walking into the station, but there's that other scene at the bar that really makes things twist a little bit. So
yeah, but yeah,
been-
it definitely pulls me in. I would say you, but you're an adult. I don't want to speak for you. You can speak for yourself.
well, while
I've
you
been
hear I'm
reading-
talking about it, I definitely wouldn't suggest this to everybody, but people who are into that kind of mind effy, weird, and slightly evil. There's like a evilness to it that's kind of interesting,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I've been reading the IMDb comments on Lose, and there's one person who said uninspired and boring, 1 out of 10.
What?
Another
Didn't see
person
it.
said 1 out of 10, could not get through it. But then there's another person who
That
said surreal and mesmerizing, 9 out of 10. So
the first person didn't watch it. If they said it was uninspired,
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah.
watch the movie. There's
Well-
no way in hell you watch this movie, and the first thing you think, oh yeah, they had no idea.
People say that kind of stuff about Amulet. Go look at the reviews of Amulet. You'll see the same sort of things because certain people, it's just like they don't want to like.
I get that
Right.
everyone has an opinion. I understand this. Maybe you watch Lose and you don't like it, and that's fair. To call it uninspired is objectively wrong.
Right.
very cool.
That's like saying Speed Racer. Like, I didn't like Speed Racer. It was a black and white movie. No, it's one of the most colorful movies on the planet.
No, you got a good point there. It's the difference between saying something is a well-made movie and saying you don't like it, right?
Yeah.
It's an opinion versus an objective truth. I mean, I can look at The Painted Bird. It's a well-made movie. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So that's
You
different.
love it. You love it. That's what you meant.
Oh, I do love it. I sleep with it every night. The Painted Bird. We
By
snuggle.
the way, Eric,
What do you
you're
call-
gonna have to
what
see
do
it
you-
one
what
of
do you
these
call-
days.
Would you call The Painted Bird boring?
Would I call it boring?
No.
No, Bruce. Like,
No.
you hated the movie. There's a bunch of pejoratives that you could call it that just is objectively wrong, though.
But see, if I hate a movie, it means that it actually, in some ways, is more interesting than the bland movie. It's worse to say, like,
Yeah.
it was okay. If I get to the point of hating a movie, I actually
Yeah.
sometimes want to kind of go back and look at them again because it actually affected me a lot. You know,
Yeah.
so there's something
But
going on there.
I guess I just can't get over this calling Lose uninspired. That just does not make sense to me.
You are
How
very
do you watch
uninspired
that
passionate
person.
movie?
about Lose. I have to see this
How
movie.
do you watch that movie and uninspired is the word that comes to mind. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
That's
make
because some people are unimaginative.
I guess.
So okay,
Is that like when they call Endgame underrated? It's like everyone loves it. It made the most money. Everyone saw the movie. Everyone loves the movie, and they made all the money, and it's underrated.
yeah,
What?
I-
Okay.
Bruce, I think we touched on it with Eric. He's very passionate about Lose. I'm gonna go
Yes.
check it out. I'm so excited to see Lose. I wonder if it's streaming on Shudder or Amazon. I'm sure I'll be able to.
It is on Shudder.
Okay,
Shudder.
Well, I'm gonna
Yes.
per Andrew Martin and Bruce Purkey and now you, Eric Holmes. I'm going to subscribe to Shudder, and probably the first movie I'm going to watch is
Uninspired.
Lose.
Get out of
Which-
here.
Then
with
go
that
watch
shit.
Dogs Don't Wear Pants.
And then Dogs Don't Wear Pants, and neither do Asian men who
Dogs
who
don't wear
are
pants.
podcasters. Dogs don't. Okay.
Got that
I'll
last
make
part.
sure to
You try to sneak that last part by
Yes,
us. I
I'm-
caught it.
I just sneak the dumb jokes for you, Eric Hobbs, because you're the. Thank you so much. We are going to wrap up the show with a final excellent movie pick from Impetigore, Bruce Purkey. What are you going to lead us out with, Mr. Purkey?
I'm going to lead you out with something totally different. It's not a movie. It's not artsy. It's not artistic. It's not scary. This is something that you could share with your kid, but you can also enjoy it. And it's awesome. It's been out for a while. I've never come across it before, but I'm finally doing it. And what I'm doing is every night I'm watching one episode of this series because my kid wants me to watch it with him. He is 11 years old, and he said, Dad, you're going to watch this movie, or I want you to watch this show with me. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch the show with you. So it's on Netflix, and it's Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if anyone else has seen Avatar: The Last Airbender here in this room, but if you haven't, it's fucking excellent. It's really good.
So it hits all ages. It's what you're saying.
Yeah, and this is the series. This is not the movie. So
yes.
do not watch the movie.
See,
But
I
it's
still haven't seen the movie either. So.
yeah. My kid immediately said to me, he
completely.
said, Dad, don't watch the movie. And I said, well, I'll watch the whole series with you, and then at the end I'll watch a little of the movie. He goes, you can watch a little of it, but it's terrible, Dad. And it's just I'm just giving you something if you have a kid and you want to watch something with them, but it's also it's accessible. Each episode is like 30 minutes. Like I said, I watch one episode a night with him. It's got fun in it. It's got great characters. It's got a cool story. And each episode kind of has its own little story that goes into the overarching story. And each little episode, sometimes they cover some really interesting things. You know, there's different tribes. There's a lot of metaphors. It's kind of similar to what you would have in the old Star Trek, where they'll have things that are metaphoric for racism or for war or for sexism or for, so there's a lot of really interesting ideas that are going there at a kid's level, but super great and interesting subjects, but also in a really fun and interesting story. And it has an overarching story that's really good. And it's got great action and animation in it. So, I mean, what else can you ask for? It's super great. To people who have seen it, this is like old news. It's a well-beloved series. But this only got 3 seasons. Each season is like 20 episodes. You could binge it if you want, but I would advise doing what I'm doing and watching it as an ongoing series with a kid if you have a kid. And you can kind of share it together, and it's really fun. It's cool.
Does it collect just merch, Avatar merch too, or Last Airbender stuff? Has he done that
Nope.
yet? Not yet. Oh, just
Although
enjoy.
we do want to buy an Appa plush because Mom likes plushes, so we want to get an Appa plush. And Appa is their flying bison thing that they fly. It's almost like for all of you old Never Ending Stories guys, it's almost like Falcor, but it's this flying bison thing that they fly around with to get to different areas, and each season is a different thing, right? So the Airbender, he's an Airbender. He's the Avatar. He's been asleep for 100 years, and he's come back, and he's got to master all the other elements. He only can do air. So one season is him mastering water, another season mastering earth, and mastering fire, and then the final finale will be after that. So it's cool.
Very cool. Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's available.
Yeah.
The series, not the M. Night movie. The series is available for streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
Before we go, Impetigore, Bruce Purkey, Eric Holmes, do you have anything else to say before we bid adieu?
I did, and then I forgot. And then okay. I actually I'll save that for next week. But yes.
Oh, you're saving
I
something.
gotta get more. Okay, I'm doing some editing on my friend Bailey, her video series, and I just got to get more. I don't have the information in front of me, but it's called Mongol Rally on the Couch. So maybe you could find it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm editing some of the episodes, and her friend Evan is editing. So we're kind of going back and forth, which is why I didn't get a lot of movies done. That it is as I normally do this week because I was spending a lot of time with that. But
Okay, cool.
I'll just put links on the I'll put links on the Facebook page,
Very
and
cool.
I'll get more information and talk more about it next week.
Okay, cool. Sounds very cool. Very cool. Bruce.
I would just say go to my YouTube, Rustomeyer, Rustomire. You can see my individual reviews as well as interviews and conversations. The most recent one that's going up has got myself and Eric and Andrew Martin, and we talk about everything from Zodiac to
Zodiac.
Burt Reynolds' mustache or lack of mustache
Wow.
to Benji.
I could be wrong, but I think we went back to Zodiac at least.
Maybe a couple
15
times. Zodiac might have reappeared. Yes. So yeah, we have a lot of fun talking there. So you can check that out.
So that is Bruce Purkey's YouTube channel, Rustomeyer. As
Mhm.
far as me, Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey, we also have that sister brother podcast to Movie Mainline called Find Your Film. Our first episode was last week. We're taping our second episode this week. We just got submitted to accepted by Apple Podcast, which is huge, and we're now Find Your Films now out on Spotify and Stitcher, and it'll be available in a ton of other podcatchers. We're just trying to grow our movie community, folks, and we're slowly but surely, folks, we're getting there. So Find Your Film, Movie Mainline, Rustomeyer, Eric Holmes, Mongol. What's the name of the Mongol rally on
It's,
the?
Mongol Rally from the Couch. I'll put a link to it on the Facebook page. So go to the Movie Mainline Facebook page and click on that because it is a cool thing.
Yep.
Definitely. Okay, guys. And last but not least, when you watch Lose, make sure Eric Holmes is the nicest out of all three of us, out of all four of us. By the way, Luis Lacau, he'll be with us hopefully next week. Man Bites Film, Man Bites Media. Don't ever say Lose is uninspired. And we are not uninspired as well. We are very inspired to give you the yes.
Is Lewis gonna is he gonna watch Lose and change his name to Lose Lacau?
Luis Lacau, get back to us next week, folks. That is a great joke by Eric Holmes. That is a very, you know what? Too bad you're not looking at the YouTube video. He's doing a little bit of a, with the eyes thing. It's getting me scared, kind of like Nicholas Rogan. Don't look now. Don't look now, folks. We'll be back next week. Take care.